When on the 23rd of May 2008, at an impressive ceremony at the ballroom of the Eco Hotel and Suites, the Rose of Sharon Foundation was formally launched, many perceived it to be another token gesture by a group of elite women to be seen as socially responsive to the plight of the needy. What a lot of people did not know was that the ceremony they witnessed that day was just the formal presentation of an activity that had been going on for at least 3 years prior to that date. The first set of 3 widows who were empowered prior to the official launch of the foundation were guests at the launch and shared moments with the dignitaries who attended the event. The foundation was registered on the 14th of February 2005, and even before its registration, its founder, Mrs. Folorunsho Alakija, had been dispensing charity and support for widows and others who used to throng the Surulere premises of her business, the Rose of Sharon Prints and Promotions.
One day when I was praying, and I specifically had asked him which ministry that he actually was laying in my hands. He had dropped James chapter 1 verse 27 in my spirit that actually says that one should visit widows and orphans.
The official launch was thus a public affirmation of an ongoing charitable enterprise divinely inspired. The Rose of Sharon Foundation is a faith-based non-profit, non-governmental organization headquartered in Lagos, Nigeria, whose activities span Lagos, Ogun, Oyo. The foundation's primary focus of benevolence are widows and orphans, with the objectives of utilizing the talents and resources of the foundation staff and trustees to design and execute programs that guarantee financial independence for them. In addition, the foundation is committed to securing educational opportunities for the children of beneficiary widows as well as orphans. The ultimate objective of the foundation is to extend care and support to widows and orphans with a view to ensuring their freedom from abuse and exploitation by an uncaring and hostile community. The foundation is propelled by a strong foundation of faith, energized to serve by an overpowering sense of compassion, as sustained by the conviction anchored in hope. Hence, the Rose of Sharon Foundation vision and mission statement declares, "We envision a caring society that breeds hope, brings succor, and eases life's burdens for widows and orphans." And the mission statement is, "Our mission is to empower widows and orphans with education, skills, and other enablers to uplift their socio-economic and spiritual life so that they can individually and collectively participate in responsible nation building." As we commemorate this auspicious milestone of the 5th anniversary of the foundation's launch, let us take an overview of the foundation's activities. The first formal empowerment exercise took place on the 23rd of May 2008, and since then there have been 9 other formal empowerment exercises, in which 963 widows have been empowered in one form or the other. 72 orphans awarded scholarships, as well as 1,356 children of widows awarded scholarships. Altogether, no less than 2,391 persons have benefited from the work of the Rose of Sharon Foundation. Empowerment of the widows could be in the form of providing them with work tools like sewing machines or the granting of microcredit loans. Whatever the case, the staff of the foundation meticulously consult with the widows and orphans to come up with the best possible way to alleviate their plight. Given the numbers that the foundation deals with, one would not expect the trustees to be conversant with individual cases of widows. But that is not the case, as trustees of the foundation devote time to personally follow up the progress of the widows and orphans. Recently, a group of trustees set out individually to follow up on some of the widows and orphans. Mrs. Alakija personally visited Mrs. Blessing Okoro and her 2 lovely daughters at their newly rented room. She also paid a visit to Ableto Adewumi, a widow who was married to a Senegalese man resident in Nigeria, and her daughter, who is on a Rose of Sharon University scholarship. Mrs. Catherine Ahaba, who now works with the foundation, was also visited at her Badore home, where Mrs. Alakija met 2 of her children. Mrs. Diana Ogwo, a trustee of the foundation, made out time to visit with several widows, among whom were Mrs. Comfort Onwuka, who, on top of her plight of being a widow, recently had to contend with a fire incident which destroyed her home. Mrs. Ogwo paid a call on Mrs. Adenike Salako as well as Mrs. Esther Emmanuel Akpan. She also visited Mrs. Patricia Wilson and Mrs. Adeline Olushola Pupwola. Mrs. Gladys Ifozo, another trustee of the foundation, along with Mudupe Chidi, a trustee of the foundation also, made out time to visit with an orphan, Sunday Adetola, who is today enjoying a scholarship from the foundation to study fashion designing at the Yaba College of Technology.
Because now we have clear vision of how tomorrow is going to look like. Even it's not, the way it is now, fine. But it's not like those days that, yes, we're in the streets. You just walk down the street, that destination, day in, day out, same thing. But now I can say I'm working.
The scholarship program of the foundation has recorded a good number of university graduates, among whom is Onyema Ezeala, who recently graduated from the Lagos State University. Mrs. Efozo also visited Mrs. Dorothy Obasi, a widow, as well as Mrs. Victoria Obaro, another widow. Mrs. Lydia Saka, a trustee of the foundation, was present during the visit to the Ilaje Bariga residence of Mrs. Sarah Adebisi and her two very well-spoken daughters, who are on a Rose of Sharon scholarship to a private secondary school in Lagos. Mrs. Saka also visited Mrs. Eukaria Udenze, a widow. Mrs. Tokwe Olushola, another committed trustee of the foundation, was on hand when the foundation checked up on an orphan, Mohammed Ayuba Hamed, to find out how he was coping with life and his studies. She also visited Mrs. Dorcas Akindoyi, a widow. Mrs. Catherine Ahaba, one of the widows earlier visited, who today is an executive officer with the foundation, facilitated the visits and was present at every visitation, which included the following widows: Mrs. Rebecca Ijoma Ombala, Mrs. Idowu Adesonya, Mrs. Jacinto Obi, Mrs. Christiana Ogunlano, Mrs. Aminat Memudu Shongobi, Mrs. Rebecca Omotaya Shadolu, and Mrs. Stella Okeogu. One would have thought that with modernity, the plight of these widows would have been lessened. However, age-old prejudices appear to still prevail. A random sampling of their experiences will bear this out.
Because I didn't have child in that family, I was neglected. Yes. I was neglected because if there's any child that I feel maybe they will be asking from time to time, how is the children or that. So since then, nobody cares.
So since that time, things is not easy for me. Even my husband people, nobody they care. So the time where I go meet them, say, things he get as CBU. They say no big girls I born. Tomorrow now they go marry. Say make I no worry them.
I encounter a lot of things whereby men will tell you, please come, I want to help you. And they want to take advantage of you. Even to my children.
So after the death, we went for the burial. We came back. Since we came back to now, I've not had anything for the family, whether 10 naira of bread or sweet or 5 naira for the children. Nothing.
One thing is, however, for sure. The Rose of Sharon Foundation's resolve to ameliorate the plight of these widows is unshakable, as can be evidenced by the commitment of its trustees.
As the project director, a lot of Nigerians, particularly Lagosians, they have my numbers now. My numbers are open. People will call me at midnight, oh, something happened, there's a widow, and I rush there as the project director. And at our secretariat, we make sure that we visit as the project director. Like I said, it has not been easy because even weekends when people are relaxed after service, you still find me moving around. There's a follow-up.
The common thread that binds these widows together could be said to be the loss of their spouses, which in turn has exposed them to prejudice. However, all of them have cause to smile today because of the untiring work of the Rose of Sharon Foundation, to which they are very grateful.
Rose of Sharon removed bitterness from my life because I was bitter.
Rose of Sharon, God will bless them. God will bless Mama.
The Rose of Sharon, I thank them
much. I didn't have the pity mind to help the widows like us.
As we commemorate the 5th anniversary of the formal launch of the Rose of Sharon Foundation, let us all make a commitment to support the work of the foundation. God bless you.